The space around Earth had been quiet for thousands of years. Ships from different planets sometimes passed by, but none had ever stopped to visit. That changed on a cold Tuesday morning when the first alien vessel appeared near the moon. Captain Jake Martinez was drinking his morning coffee aboard the Earth Defense Station Titan when the alarm started screaming. The coffee cup fell from his hands and shattered on the metal floor. He rushed to the main control room where dozens of screens showed the same impossible sight. "Sir, we have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace," reported Lieutenant Kelly Davis, her voice shaky. "The ships are huge, much bigger than anything we have ever built." Jake stared at the screens. 7 massive ships hung in space like silver mountains. Each one was at least 5 miles long, with smooth curves that seemed to flow like water frozen in time. Strange lights pulsed along their hulls in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Get me a direct line to Earth Command," Jake ordered. "And wake up Dr. Harper. We need her here now." Dr. Lisa Harper had been sleeping in her small quarters when the emergency call came. She was Earth's top expert on possible alien life, though until today, it had all been theory. She ran through the corridors of the space station, her heart pounding with excitement and fear. When she reached the control room, Jake was already talking to the leaders on Earth. The president herself was on the screen, looking worried. Other world leaders crowded around her, all speaking at once in different languages. "Dr. Harper," the president said when she saw Lisa enter the room, "what are we looking at?" Lisa studied the alien ships on the screens. They were unlike anything humans had ever imagined. The design was too perfect, too smooth. No rough edges or visible weapons. But something about them felt wrong, like looking at a beautiful snake that might bite. "I need to analyze their signals," Lisa said. "Are they trying to communicate?" "That's the strange part," Jake replied. "They haven't sent any messages, they just appeared and stopped moving. It's like they're waiting for something." 3 hours passed. The alien ships remained silent and still. Then, without warning, every communication device on Earth and in space received the same message at the same time. The voice that spoke was not human. It sounded like wind blowing through metal tubes, but somehow the words were clear in every language on Earth. "Primitive species of the third planet. We are the Kithari. We have returned to collect what belongs to us. Prepare your biological samples for transfer. Do not resist. Your evolution ends here." The message repeated 3 times, then stopped. The silence that followed was more frightening than any scream. In the control room, Jake felt his blood turn cold. Biological samples? What do they mean? Dr. Harper was already working at her computer, trying to understand the alien language patterns. "They're not speaking to us like equals," she said quietly. "They're giving orders like we're animals in a zoo." On Earth, Colonel Sam Brooks was mobilizing every military base on the planet. The message had been clear enough. These aliens saw humans as something to be collected, not talked to. Sam had spent his whole career preparing for wars between human nations. He had never imagined preparing for war against creatures from another world. "All units, full alert status," Sam spoke into his radio. "I want every weapon system online, every pilot in the air, every ship in space." The alien ships began to move. Slowly, gracefully, they spread out around Earth. Each one took a position over a different continent. The largest ship, with golden lights instead of silver, positioned itself directly above North America. Inside that ship, Admiral Zixthan looked down at the blue and green planet below. To his alien eyes, Earth looked exactly as it had 30,000 years ago. The same oceans, the same continents, the same small moon circling nearby. "Science Officer Velnara," he said to the creature beside him, "begin the deep scans. I want to know how many specimens we can collect." Velnara's forearms moved across her control panel with practiced ease. Her large, dark eyes reflected the data flowing across her screens. "Admiral, the preliminary scans show approximately 8 billion human specimens. Much more than we left behind." "Good. They have been breeding well. Begin activation of the monitoring stations." deep beneath Earth's surface, in caves and buried chambers around the world, ancient machines began to wake up. They had been sleeping for 30,000 years, waiting for this moment. Now they stretched their electronic senses upward, reaching through rock and soil to touch the surface world. The machines had been left behind by the Cathari during their first visit to Earth. Back then, humans lived in small groups, hunting animals and gathering plants. They had no cities, no writing, no metal tools. The aliens had studied them like scientists study insects, taking notes and samples before leaving. The monitoring stations had been designed to record everything that happened on Earth after the Cathari left. They were supposed to show how the primitive humans lived and died, how they stayed the same simple creatures they had always been. But as the data flowed into the alien computers, something was wrong. The numbers didn't make sense. The readings showed impossible things. "Admiral," Velnara said, her voice filled with confusion. "The monitoring data is corrupted. It shows the human specimens have developed technology, cities, spaceflight. This cannot be correct." Admiral Zixthan studied the data with growing concern. According to the readings, the primitive humans had somehow learned to control fire, create tools, build machines, and even leave their planet. In just 30,000 years, they had gone from living in caves to building space stations. "Run the scans again," he ordered. "There must be an error." But the second scan showed the same impossible results. The third scan was even worse. It suggested that humans had not just learned to use technology, but had actually improved upon designs that the Cathari had accidentally left behind. On Earth, strange things were happening. The crystalline monitoring stations buried deep underground were sending out signals that human scientists could detect. Dr. Harper noticed the energy readings first. "Jake, look at this," she called out. "We're getting massive electromagnetic pulses from underground, all over the planet. It's like something is waking up down there." Jake joined her at the scanner display. The energy signatures were unlike anything human technology produced. They were too organized, too purposeful, and they were all pointing upward, toward the alien ships. "It's like they're talking to each other," Jake said. "The ships and whatever is underground." Dr. Harper felt a chill run down her spine. What if the aliens have been here before? What if they left something behind? The thought was terrifying. If the aliens had visited Earth in the past, it meant they knew more about humans than humans knew about themselves. It meant this wasn't first contact. It was a return visit. And from the way they talked about collecting biological samples, humans were not going to like what the aliens had planned for their homecoming. The alien ships had been hanging over Earth for 3 days. During that time, Dr. Peter Grant had been working in the deepest caves he could find. As Earth's leading expert on ancient human history, he knew that answers to the present often lay buried in the past. Peter wiped sweat from his forehead as he examined the cave wall in front of him. The cave was in France, hidden beneath layers of rock that had not seen sunlight for thousands of years. His team had been digging here for months, but the alien arrival had given their work new urgency. "Dr. Grant, you need to see this," called out his assistant, Martin Lopez. Martin was holding a bright light against the cave wall, illuminating something that made Peter's heart race. There, painted in ancient colors that had somehow survived the passing of time, were pictures that should not exist. The painting showed 7 large objects in the sky, exactly like the alien ships now hovering over Earth. Beneath the sky, objects were small human figures, but these humans were not running or hiding. They were pointing at the ships and seemed to be working together. "This painting is at least 20,000 years old," Peter whispered. "Maybe 30,000, but look at this detail." He pointed to one part of the painting where the ancient artist had drawn something that looked like the crystalline monitoring stations. The primitive humans in the painting were gathered around it, and some seemed to be touching it with tools. "They knew," Peter said. "Somehow our ancestors knew about the aliens." Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, engineer Katie Walsh was having problems of her own. She had been called to examine strange crystal formations that had appeared in major cities around the globe. The crystals had pushed up through concrete and steel like plants growing toward sunlight. Katie knelt beside one of the crystals in New York City. It was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. The surface was perfectly smooth and seemed to glow with its own light. But when she touched it with her instruments, the readings made no sense. "The energy output is incredible," she told her team over the radio. "This thing is putting out more power than a nuclear reactor. But there's no heat, no radiation, nothing dangerous. It's like it's using some kind of energy we don't understand." Her assistant, Tom Wilson, was examining another crystal formation in London. "Katie, I'm getting the same readings here, but there's something else. The crystal is responding to our instruments. When I scan it, it scans me back." Katie felt cold, despite the warm day. "What do you mean it scans you back?" "I mean it's learning. Every time I test it, it adapts. It's like it's studying our technology while we study it." Aboard the alien mothership, Science Director Velnara was having the worst day of her very long life. The monitoring data from Earth kept getting stranger and more impossible. According to her instruments, the human specimens had not only survived the past 30,000 years, but had somehow used Cathari technology to advance their civilization. "This cannot be correct," she told her research team. "The mathematical models show that primitive species require at least 1 million years to develop spaceflight. These humans have done it in 30,000. Her assistant, a young Cathari, named Zordon, looked up from his data screen. "Director, there is something else. The monitoring stations are not just sending us information about human development. They are also receiving data." "Receiving data? From where?" "From the humans themselves. It appears the primitive specimens have learned to communicate with our technology." Velnara felt something she had never experienced before: fear. In all her centuries of life, she had never encountered a species that could reverse engineer Cathari science. Most civilizations took millions of years just to discover fire. On Earth, the world's leaders were meeting in an emergency session. President Claire Adams sat at a large table with representatives from every nation. The room was filled with tension and fear, but also something else: determination. "Ladies and gentlemen," President Adams said, "we have received a formal communication from the aliens. They call themselves the Cathari, and they have made their intentions clear." She activated a recording device. The same wind-through-metal voice filled the room, but this time the message was longer and more detailed. "Human specimens, you have grown beyond your intended parameters. This was not planned. You will return to your primitive state, or you will be eliminated. We have seeded your planet with genetic control devices. Surrender now, and some of you will be preserved for study." The room erupted in angry voices. Representatives from different countries shouted in different languages, but the meaning was the same in all of them: no surrender. General Mary Hayes, the head of Earth's combined military forces, stood up. "Mr. President, our analysis suggests the aliens are not as strong as they want us to believe. Their ships are built for exploration and research, not war. They expected to find cave people, not a unified planet with nuclear weapons." Dr. Lisa Harper, who had been studying the alien communications for days, added her own disturbing discovery. "The aliens keep referring to us as specimens and talking about genetic control devices. I believe they visited Earth in the past and tried to manipulate human evolution. But something went wrong with their plan." Back in the French cave, Dr. Peter Grant was uncovering more paintings that told an incredible story. The ancient artwork showed humans not just observing the alien visitors, but actively working to understand their technology. One painting showed early humans breaking open what looked like a monitoring station and examining its contents. "Martin, look at this sequence," Peter said, pointing to a series of connected paintings. "This shows our ancestors learning from the alien technology. They're not just copying it, they're improving it." The final painting in the sequence was the most shocking. It showed humans using modified alien devices to enhance themselves. The painted figures were still recognizably human, but they were taller, stronger, and seemed to glow with inner light. They didn't just resist the aliens, Peter realized. They stole their technology and used it to evolve faster than nature intended. Katie Walsh made a similar discovery at the same time. The crystal formations were not just alien monitoring devices. They were hybrid creations, part alien science and part human engineering. Somehow, over thousands of years, humans had learned to modify and improve the alien technology. "Tom, these crystals are not pure alien tech," she reported. "They've been changed, enhanced. It's like someone has been upgrading them for thousands of years." As the day ended, the true scope of the situation became clear. The Cathari had come to Earth expecting to collect primitive specimens. Instead, they had found a species that had used their own technology against them. Humans had not just evolved naturally over 30,000 years. They had been secretly evolving themselves using stolen alien science. The Watchers had returned to find that their specimens had become something they never intended to create, something that might be more advanced than the Watchers themselves. And in the deepest caves of Earth, more ancient paintings waited to be discovered, paintings that showed the final phase of humanity's secret evolution, paintings that would reveal just how much the primitive specimens had learned from their unwelcome teachers. The alien mothership was bigger than any human city. Commander Rick Stone tried not to think about that as his small shuttle approached the massive vessel. He was the first human to ever board an alien ship, and he was terrified. With him were Dr. Amy Chen, a brilliant scientist who specialized in biology, and Professor Dan Miller, who had spent years studying ancient languages. They were humanity's first diplomatic team to make contact with the Cathari. "Remember," Rick said into his radio, "we're here to learn, not to fight. Keep your eyes open and report everything you see." The shuttle docked with a soft bump. A few moments later, the airlock opened and the three humans got their first look at the inside of an alien ship. The corridors were too tall for humans, with smooth walls that seemed to pulse with soft light. The air smelled like rain and metal. They were met by Admiral Zixthon himself. The alien was nearly 8 feet tall with pale blue skin and 4 arms. His face was almost human, but his eyes were too large and completely black. When he spoke, his voice came from a small device on his chest that translated his words into English. "Welcome, specimens," he said. "You are more developed than our records indicated. This is unexpected." Dr. Chen stepped forward. "We prefer to be called humans, not specimens. And we're here to talk as equals." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. "Equals? You are a young species. We have traveled between stars for millions of years while you were still living in caves." Professor Miller had been studying the alien language patterns. "Admiral, may we ask how long your species has been spacefaring?" "We achieved interstellar travel 4 million years ago. We have cataloged over 10,000 worlds and 50,000 species." Rick felt a chill. "How many of those species survived your cataloging?" The alien paused. "Survival was not the purpose of our studies. They were led through corridors filled with other Cathari." Amy noticed that all the aliens looked almost identical. Same height, same pale blue skin, same black eyes. It was like walking through a city of copies. "Admiral," she said, "your people all look very similar. Are you related?" "We are genetically optimized. We eliminated the chaos of random reproduction millions of years ago. Every Cathari is created with the same perfect genetic pattern." Dan Miller exchanged a worried look with Rick. "No genetic diversity at all?" "Diversity is inefficient. We have achieved perfection." They were brought to a large chamber filled with strange machines and floating screens. Science Director Velnara was waiting for them, her 4 arms moving constantly over different control panels. "Humans," she said without looking up, "you have presented us with a puzzle. Our monitoring stations show impossible development. In 30,000 Earth years, you have advanced from primitive tool use to spaceflight. This violates all known laws of evolutionary development." Amy stepped closer to examine the alien technology. "Maybe your laws are incomplete." "Impossible. We have studied evolution across the galaxy for millions of years. No species develops this quickly without outside intervention." Rick had been thinking about something. What kind of outside intervention? Velnara finally looked at him. "Genetic modification. Direct alteration of a species' evolutionary path. But our records show we performed no such modifications on your world." "Maybe you didn't modify us," Dan said slowly, "but you left technology behind. Monitoring stations. What if we learned from them?" The alien's large eyes widened. Primitive species cannot comprehend our technology. It would be like insects trying to understand your computers. Amy had been studying the alien equipment around them. She noticed something troubling. Admiral, this technology is impressive, but it's not advancing. Everything here looks like it was built to the same specifications. How long since your people invented something new? The question seemed to confuse Zixthan. New inventions are unnecessary. We achieved perfection millions of years ago. But perfect for what? Rick asked. Perfect for exploration? Perfect for war? Perfect for survival? The aliens looked at each other with an expression that seemed almost like panic. Finally, Velnara spoke. Perfect for existence. We eliminated death, disease, and genetic chaos. We are eternal. Dan Miller had been thinking about the alien language patterns and what they revealed. You're dying, aren't you? Not individually, but as a species. The chamber fell silent. The aliens' movements became slower, more uncertain. We do not die, Admiral Zixthan said, but his voice lacked conviction. No, Amy said, understanding flooding through her. You don't die, but you don't really live either. You don't change, don't grow, don't adapt. You've been the same for millions of years. She looked around at the identical aliens. That's why you collect other species. You're looking for something you've lost, the ability to change. Velnara's forearm stopped moving. We are studying other species to understand biological diversity. You're studying us because you need what we have, Rick said. The ability to evolve, to adapt, to become something new. The aliens were clearly uncomfortable with this conversation. Admiral Zixthan made a gesture, and armed guards appeared. But Rick noticed something important. The guards looked exactly like every other Cathari. Same height, same build, same pale blue skin. You can't even create different types of people for different jobs, he observed. Your soldiers look like your scientists who look like your leaders. You've eliminated all diversity. Amy was examining the alien technology more closely. She noticed that despite its advanced appearance, it was all built on the same basic principles. No innovation, no creative improvements, just the same perfect designs repeated over and over. How long since you've encountered a species that could resist you? She asked. The question seemed to hit the aliens like a physical blow. They looked at each other with expressions that were almost human in their fear and confusion. No species has ever resisted collection, Velnara finally admitted. All primitive civilizations submit to superior technology. But we're not submitting, Dan pointed out. We're talking to you as equals. We're questioning your methods. We're not afraid of you. Rick realized something that chilled him to the bone. You came here expecting to find the same primitive humans. You left behind 30,000 years ago. But we're not primitive anymore, and that scares you. The aliens fell silent. Around them, the perfect technology hummed with perfect efficiency, but there was something hollow about it, something dead. We do not experience fear, Admiral Zixthan said, but his translated voice carried a tremor. Amy looked at the alien leader with something that might have been pity. You've been alive for millions of years, but you haven't lived at all. You've been so afraid of imperfection that you've become perfect corpses. The truth was becoming clear. The Cathari were not conquerors or explorers. They were a dying species, desperately searching the galaxy for the spark of life they had bred out of themselves, and they had found it in the last place they expected, in the primitive specimens they had left behind on a small blue planet. But those specimens had used the aliens' own technology to become something the Cathari had never intended. Something that might be more alive than the Cathari themselves. The diplomatic mission ended badly. Commander Rick Stone, Dr. Amy Chen, and Professor Dan Miller were escorted back to their shuttle under armed guard. The Cathari had heard enough uncomfortable truths for one day. As their small ship pulled away from the alien mothership, Rick activated his emergency communicator. Earth Command, this is Stone. The aliens are not interested in peaceful solutions. They still see us as specimens to be collected. Back on the alien ship, Elder Mordanis, the oldest and most powerful of the Cathari leaders, was meeting with the Science Council. His ancient face showed the strain of millions of years of existence without change or growth. "The human specimens have become contaminated," he announced to the assembled scientists. "They have used our technology in ways we never intended. This cannot be allowed to continue." Science Director Velnara raised one of her forearms. "Elder, perhaps we could study how they achieved such rapid development. It might help us understand evolution better." "No," Mordanis said firmly. "They are no longer suitable for our purposes. We will take what genetic material we can harvest and eliminate the rest. Deploy the collection ships." On Earth, General Mary Hayes was coordinating the planet's defense from an underground command center in Colorado. She had been a soldier for 30 years, but she had never faced an enemy like this. The Cathari had technology that was millions of years ahead of human science. "All units, report status," she spoke into her headset. Reports came in from around the world. Admiral Joe Parker commanded the space fleet from orbit. "General, we have every ship we can put in space up here. It's not much compared to what they have, but we're ready." Colonel Sam Brooks was in charge of ground forces. "All major cities are on full alert. We've got every weapon system pointed at the sky." But Mary knew they were outgunned. The alien ships were too advanced, too powerful. Humanity's only advantage was that the Cathari underestimated them. That advantage didn't last long. The first alien collection ship appeared over London. It was smaller than the motherships, but still massive by human standards. Strange beams of light shot down from the ship, and people on the ground began to feel weak and confused. "It's some kind of neural disruptor," Dr. Lisa Harper reported from her laboratory. "They're trying to make people docile so they can collect them easily." But something unexpected happened. The humans affected by the beam didn't become docile. Instead, they became angry. Very angry. In London, crowds of people gathered in the streets, shaking their fists at the alien ship above. They threw rocks and bottles, knowing it was useless but unable to stop themselves from fighting back. Admiral Joe Parker watched from his command ship in space. "All fighters, attack pattern Alpha. Target the collection ship over London." Human fighters were tiny compared to the alien vessel, like insects attacking a whale. But they were fast and determined. They swarmed around the collection ship, firing everything they had. The Cathari had expected their superior technology to end the fight quickly. Instead, they found themselves dealing with an enemy that refused to give up. Human weapons designed through thousands of years of warfare proved surprisingly effective against ships built for scientific exploration. "Their energy shields are down 20%, reported Captain Laura Davis from her fighter. "These things aren't built for combat." The collection ship over London began to retreat, but more alien ships appeared over other cities. New York, Tokyo, Moscow, and a dozen other population centers found themselves under attack. But the humans had learned something important from the first battle. The Cathari were not warriors. They were scientists who had expected to collect samples from a primitive species. They were not prepared for a unified planet fighting back with everything it had. In his laboratory, Dr. Kevin Walsh was examining pieces of a damaged alien ship that had crashed in Australia. Kevin was Amy Chen's brother, and he had inherited the same brilliant mind for understanding complex technology. "This is incredible," he told his research team. "Their computers are more advanced than anything we have, but the programming is so rigid, it's like they can't adapt to new situations." His assistant, Janet Brown, was studying the alien communication systems. "Kevin, look at this. I've been monitoring their radio signals, and they're all identical. Every ship is sending the same messages in the same patterns." "They can't improvise," Kevin realized. "They've been doing the same things for so long that they've forgotten how to change their tactics." This discovery was quickly shared with the military commanders. If the aliens couldn't adapt their strategies, then humans could predict their moves and counter them. General Mary Hayes smiled for the first time in days. "All units, the enemy is predictable. They'll use the same attack patterns over and over. Learn those patterns and you can beat them." The tide of battle began to turn. Human forces started winning fights they should have lost. The aliens had better technology, but humans had something the Cathari had bred out of themselves millions of years ago. The ability to change, to adapt, to try new things when the old ways weren't working. Dr. Kevin Walsh made another disturbing discovery while examining the alien computers. Janet, I've broken into their historical files. They've been doing this for millions of years. Thousands of worlds, hundreds of thousands of species. They've wiped out entire civilizations. But they said they were conducting scientific research, Janet protested. They were lying to themselves, Kevin said grimly. Look at these records. Every species they studied was eventually harvested for genetic material. They don't leave survivors. The most shocking discovery came when Kevin accessed the alien star charts. The Cathari had been broadcasting their location and activities across the galaxy for millions of years. But according to their own records, no other species had ever tried to contact them. They've made themselves so feared that entire sectors of the galaxy avoid them, Kevin realized. They're not just scientifically stagnant, they're completely isolated. But there was something else in the data files, something that made Kevin's blood run cold. The monitoring stations on Earth had been doing more than just watching human development. They had been broadcasting information about humanity across the galaxy for 30,000 years. Janet, we need to contact Earth Command immediately, Kevin said. The aliens didn't come here just to collect specimens. According to these files, the monitoring stations have been advertising Earth's location to every hostile species in the galaxy. The implication was terrifying. The Cathari weren't the only threat. They were just the first to respond to 30,000 years of broadcasts that had been painting a target on Earth. But there was hope, too. The same broadcast that had attracted the Cathari had also been sending a different message. A message of resistance, of a species that had learned to fight back against those who would exploit them. Other civilizations had received those broadcasts, too. And some of them were already on their way to see what kind of species could turn alien technology against its creators. The battle for Earth was just beginning, but humanity had already proven something that the galaxy had thought impossible. They had shown that the Cathari could be beaten, that the perfect predators had finally met their match in a species too stubborn to know when they were supposed to give up. Dr. Nina Brooks had spent most of her life digging in caves, but she had never found anything like this. Deep beneath the mountains of Tibet, her team had discovered a cave system that went down for miles. At the very bottom, painted on walls, that had been hidden since the last ice age, was the final chapter of humanity's secret history. This changes everything, she whispered into her radio as she studied the ancient artwork. The paintings show our ancestors didn't just steal alien technology, they improved it. The cave paintings told an incredible story. 30,000 years ago, when the Cathari first visited Earth, some humans had done more than just observe. They had learned. The aliens had left behind monitoring stations, thinking the primitive humans were too stupid to understand them. They were wrong. The paintings showed early humans working together to open the alien devices. They had studied the crystalline technology, figured out how it worked, and then done something the Cathari had never imagined possible. They had made it better. Look at this sequence, Nina told her assistant Paul Martinez. The humans in these paintings are using the alien crystals to change themselves, not just their bodies, but their minds. The final painting was the most shocking. It showed humans who looked almost like they did today, but with subtle differences. They stood taller, moved with perfect coordination, and seemed to glow with inner light. Most importantly, they were working together with a unity that seemed impossible for primitive people to achieve. Above ground, the war between humans and aliens was reaching its climax. Captain Laura Davis led the final space battle from her fighter squadron. She had been born to fly, and today she was flying for the survival of her entire species. All ships, this is Laura. The alien mothership is trying to retreat. Don't let it get away. The Cathari fleet was in chaos. Admiral Zixthan could not understand what had gone wrong. His species had conquered thousands of worlds with ease. They had technology that was millions of years ahead of any other civilization. But these humans kept fighting in ways that made no sense. Science Director Velnara, he called out, "Why are our weapons not working properly?" Velnara was studying her instruments with 4 arms moving frantically over the controls. "Admiral, the humans are anticipating our attacks. It's like they know what we're going to do before we do it. Impossible, our tactical systems are perfect." "That's the problem. Velnara said quietly. Our systems are too perfect. We always do the same thing in the same situation. The humans have learned to predict us. On Earth, Dr. Lisa Harper was making discoveries that explained why humans were winning battles they should have lost. The crystalline monitoring stations were not just broadcasting information to the alien ships. They were also enhancing human abilities in subtle ways. It's like a biological internet, she explained to the world leaders gathered in the emergency command center. The crystals have been slowly improving human reflexes, coordination, and intuition for 30,000 years. We didn't even know it was happening. President Claire Adams looked at the data with amazement. You're saying the aliens accidentally made us better at fighting them? Not accidentally, Lisa corrected. Our ancestors figured out how to reprogram the alien technology. They turned monitoring devices into enhancement systems. Over hundreds of generations, humans have been getting smarter, faster, and more coordinated. In space, the final battle was proving Lisa's point. Human fighters moved with impossible precision, working together like parts of a single organism. They seemed to know where every other ship was without looking, dodging alien weapons with reflexes that were faster than human nerves should allow. Laura Davis felt it herself as she piloted her fighter through the alien formation. She could sense the other human pilots around her, feel their movements as if they were extensions of her own body. It was like humanity had developed a shared consciousness that the aliens could not understand or counter. Elder Mordanus watched the battle from the bridge of the mothership and felt something he had not experienced in millions of years. Despair. His perfect species was being defeated by creatures that should have been easy to collect. How is this possible? He asked Science Director Velnara. We created them, she replied sadly. We left our technology behind, thinking it would just record their primitive behavior. Instead, they learned from it. They used our own science to evolve beyond what we ever intended. The irony was crushing. The Cathari had spent millions of years searching the galaxy for the spark of life they had lost. They had found it on Earth, but by the time they returned, that spark had grown into a fire that burned brighter than anything they could comprehend. Dr. Kevin Walsh, still studying the alien computer systems, made the final discovery that sealed humanity's victory. The aliens can't learn, he announced to the world. Their brains are genetically locked into perfect patterns. They literally cannot adapt to new situations. But humans can, his sister Amy added from the alien mothership, where she was still studying their technology. We've been adapting and improving for 30,000 years. We've become everything they used to be before they made themselves perfect. The battle ended not with a great explosion, but with a quiet surrender. Admiral Zixthan sent a message to all human forces. We concede defeat. Your species has achieved something we thought impossible. You have surpassed your creators. The alien fleet began to withdraw, but Elder Mordanus had one final revelation to share. Human specimens, you should know that your world has been broadcasting across the galaxy for 30 millennia. Other species have heard your signal. Some may come as friends, others will come as enemies. Dr. Lisa Harper smiled as she watched the alien ships disappear into hyperspace. Let them come. We're ready. In the deep caves of Tibet, Nina Brooks was still studying the ancient paintings. The final image showed something that made her heart race with excitement. It depicted humans leaving Earth, traveling to other worlds, carrying with them the crystalline technology they had learned to master. Paul, look at this, she called to her assistant. Our ancestors didn't just plan to defend Earth. They planned to spread across the galaxy. The painting showed human ships sleek and beautiful, powered by evolved alien technology. But more than that, it showed humans sharing their knowledge with other species, teaching them the same lessons humanity had learned about growth and adaptation. As the alien mothership jumped to hyperspace, Admiral Zixthan sent one final message to his own people. We have encountered a species that represents what we once were. They have reminded us that perfection without growth is death. Perhaps it is time for the Cathari to remember how to change. On Earth, President Claire Adams addressed the world. Today we learned that humanity's greatest strength is not our technology or our weapons. It's our ability to grow, to change, to become something better than we were yesterday. The monitoring stations around the world continued to broadcast, but now they carried a new message. Not a call for help or a cry of defiance, but an invitation. An offer to share the knowledge that had transformed a primitive species into the galaxy's newest hope. Humanity had passed its first test as a spacefaring species. They had faced their creators and proven themselves worthy of the technology they had inherited. Now they were ready to take their place among the stars, carrying, with them, the most precious gift in the universe, the ability to evolve.